Hey, good morning. Welcome, Patriots. We're a little bit late because we had technical problems, which does happen. It must be because it's September, and September, as you all know, is a time of change. And this is the end of summer, so I guess summer decided to end our ability to go live quickly. But here we are. Welcome, everybody. Let us know in the chat if you can see us because we want to see you. So here we go. It was been a great long weekend. We're all kind of recovering. Ed gave us the day off yesterday, so you didn't see us. So, that slave driver, Ed, as you know, is a very tough taskmaster, but he relented and gave us the time off. So it's been a good few days. And man, oh man, it's good to have my guy, my sidekick back, fresh back from Ed McMahon School, Chris Cordani. Chris, say
Hey
hello to the good folks.
yo!
So, Chris, as you all know, he was off to Ed McMahon School of Sidekicks. He
Yes,
survived every task. He was able to actually even do the Jack Daniels crawl with a surfboard across Malibu. That's no small thing either. So let me tell you, there's been more than one sidekick that's gone home because they couldn't complete that task. But you did it, Chris. God bless you, and welcome back. And we're glad that you're here because it sucked having me do both jobs last week. Just saying.
oh, I tell you, it's not always easy to drive the show and host the show. When I was doing morning radio, I would have to do my own board for 3 hours, sometimes four, which was fine. But when people called in to do the live shows, you never know. You couldn't screen them, so you just put them on and hope that it wasn't some kind of crank. So,
Well, that does add to drama.
well,
I think it's actually something that I didn't know that back in the day when I was listening to radio. I always thought you screened everybody, but I guess
you you do.
I guess some nuts do get through, right?
Well, you do screen. The screening process is pretty big in a place like WOR. When I worked at
Yeah.
WOR, I produced a lot of shows there, including Rita's, by the way. At times, I sat in for her producer, but
Oh yeah.
what we'd have is a very strong screening process, and I would also make sure that when I heard people talk, I made sure they were good. On a local radio station, you get the screenings a lot less, and
Yeah.
you get some cranks. Bob Grant loosely screened his programs. A lot of stations tightly screen, like a Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah.
But Bob Grant would never really screen the callers. He just hopes there'd be a few cranks so we could yell at them.
Well, I know Mark Levine is that's half the fun with Mark Levine is screaming at the cranks. So,
Oh yeah,
but
yeah, that's right. You're a liberal. You're
get
stupid.
off
That's
my
right.
phone!
Oh,
Get off my
get
phone!
off my phone, you fake phony
Well,
fraud.
speaking of someone I want on the phone is Karen Turk. Karen,
Hey,
welcome
what's
back.
up?
Welcome
I was
back
on
to
my
Wake
phone
Up.
because I was in the chat, which thankfully we are now live. So
That's right.
welcome
Thank
back,
goodness.
Patriots.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, we apologize for the technical problems, but
Yeah, I'm gonna sue
I think,
StreamYard.
yeah, I think it's StreamYard. I think
It's
are
an
they owned
accident.
by Brazil? Is Brazil owned StreamYard or something? I mean, my
No,
goodness sake.
here's what I believe happened. StreamYard had updated a lot of things, but I set this up a while ago, this stream up a
Yeah.
while ago. So there was a little crossfade between the two when it came to going back to Rumble. I should have checked that this morning and taken
Oh
care of
well,
it
we're
early.
here.
Yeah.
We're here, and we're here, and we're proud, right? We're
We have
no, I
lots
I,
of
can't say
pride.
that.
I'm
We're not the other thing.
I
We're
have to say
proud.
I'm so happy, Chris, that you don't think it's a conspiracy and you don't think we're being hacked by the DNC or somebody else who doesn't want us to
No,
go
no, no.
live. You're very forgiving.
We're hacked by
We're
Warner
not.
Brothers.
That's right. We're not the Philadelphia Eagles. Just saying.
Oh, yeah, we're not going to boost Santa Claus like their fans or something like that.
So no, I want to hit that real quick. So Karen, did you see that the Kamala campaign? All they're saying is not them. Oh, what us? It's like they have these really nice professional grade in the bus stop, like formal windows of Kamala being endorsed by the Philadelphia Eagles. Do you see that?
I have. I've seen a lot of things. And, I have to go back to the amazing impression that you just did. And then I have to say to myself, what was the impression that Kamala was doing, or
Oh
Camila,
yeah.
or Kamala, or whatever we're calling her now? What was that exactly? Because that accent was pretty unique.
Oh,
Yeah.
you mean the Foghorn Leghorn impression in Detroit? Is
Yes,
what
do
you're
that,
talking
Chris.
about?
Do
Is
you
that
have
what that
that?
was?
Yeah.
I actually
Mm.
have it. I actually have this, and
All right.
this is must view TV or something like that because
Must hear.
yes, must watch. Oh, must
Here we go.
ear. Okay, well,
Be
prepare
prepared.
for your
Don't
ears
eat
to bleed.
breakfast. Don't eat breakfast and watch the show. Just saying.
It's like
Ooh,
it's like she's getting advice from Hillary Clinton, who lost because she was doing things like this.
Oh, she
yeah.
lost by a lot of reasons.
Remember for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave.
I'll say,
You
boy.
better thank a union member for vacation time. Because what we know, let's just get through the next 64 days. How about that?
Oh, boy.
And you
does she get
She's
an
such
extra?
an actress.
Does she get an extra helping of black eyed peas when she goes to local restaurants for doing that accent or something? I mean, is that
If
why
she-
she does
Do
that?
you know what I think? I think she's going to like the Nancy Pelosi school of speeches, because I don't know about you and Tony. I know you don't drink, but Chris, maybe you've had a drink or two here and there. But I'm
On
from New
occasion.
Jersey, and you get some tequila in me, and that Jersey comes right out. So, you know, maybe this is her alter ego. Maybe she's taking the Nancy Pelosi vodka shots before the speech.
Well, to be honest with you, she sounds like Foghorn Leghorn. That's what she sounded like this
Yeah.
time. If you're going to
Sure.
fake an accent, you can't be going, I'll say, boy, those unions, they're the reason you did everything. Forget what Henry Ford thought
Foghorn
about back in
Leghorn.
the day when he built those villages and tried to treat his workers fairly. But anyway, well,
No,
those
it's-
ideas came from Ford.
She doesn't care about workers. I mean, this is one of the points that I don't know if you heard. There's also a clip out this morning which just came out. Tim Walsh is saying that in Project 2025 that Trump wants to bring back child labor. It's like, what? I mean, it's like a complete lie. It's like not even based in any reality. And yet the fact is this: they, through their new green deal, the new green scam, spent $370 billion with flooded the economy, caused inflation, all the other things. Oh, by the way, who does all that mining in Central Africa for lithium and cobalt? You know, 8 and 9-year-old kids. So the
Right.
party of child labor, I'm sorry, Tim, if
Is
you're
the
watching,
Democrats.
is the Democrats. Just
Yeah.
saying.
Ooh,
I mean, you guys
how
engage
are
in
we
it every
having this
freaking day.
conversation? How
Well,
is
no.
this a thing?
Well,
How is
he-
this a thing in America? How is this a thing? This is communism 101.
It is.
Well, that's why Ted Walz is the nominee for the Democrats for vice president. This way, where the kids are mining and working and everything from 9 years old and upward, they can have tampons in the boys' bathrooms.
That's right. That's a
On those
bonus.
sites where they're mining for the lithium and everything else at these hyper heavy batteries.
That's
for their
right, Karen.
electric
For
cars.
every pound of cobalt, you get a pack of tampons. What a bonus! I mean, who wouldn't work for that, right? Man, people be knocking down the. Speaking, and by the way, I don't think they unionize either, are they?
You
Are they,
know,
Chris?
I'm
I
a
don't think so.
rabbit hole
Nope,
kind
nope.
of person. You know that I'm going to go down the rabbit hole. I mean, I'm now like Foghorn, Leghorn, Bugs Bunny. I mean, we can make a lot of references here, but I think really there's so much more to it. Again, you know, if they're showing you who they are, believe them. That's this at its essence.
Yeah.
But even more than that, think about all the illegals that are coming to this country and all the unaccompanied minors. I mean, is this child trafficking by the DNC at some point? What, just because you talk about it, does that not make it a crime? What is this? This is mind-boggling.
Well, this is going to be a
Tony.
topic. This is going to be a topic on debate because I think President Trump, given the
Unreal.
opportunity, is going to bring up the nearly 400,000 kids who've gone missing under Kamala Mala Ding Dong's watch. And how do you lose a quarter nearly 500,000 kids? How do you lose that many kids?
This isn't new.
They want them. They want them for slave labor. You said slave labor at the beginning of the show, joking around about Ed Henry. But what is
I wasn't really
this
joking. But yeah,
conversation?
I mean,
This
Yeah,
isn't
well, I
new.
mean, it's unbelievable.
This isn't new. There were thousands of kids unaccounted for during the Obama Biden era as well.
Yeah.
In fact, it got so intense. Apparently, even Kamala Harris said she wanted to turn the page on the last 10 years. If you during
well,
that, during that interview.
that's what she's saying. She's running against herself. Did you
Yeah.
see the new campaign airplane? A new way forward is like, are you endorsing Trump? Is what? It's like-
Right.
Right.
Wow.
right.
It's like,
but the
that's
scary
Trump.
part is people are falling for it, though. We can sit here and we can
Oh,
pretend
wow.
like everybody's on our side, right? I mean, we could live in our bubble, and I would like to think that everybody's as logical as our chat and you and me and everybody that watches this show. But it's scary times because when people are accepting her, and they are, you know, and we could call them suburban moms or whatever, we can label them, or we could admit that they're our neighbors. And even some people that I'm surprised at are backing this woman. To me, logic's gone out the window entirely.
But she
Oh,
brings
no doubt.
so much
Oh, yeah.
joy, and she's so
Yeah.
bright.
Let's
Oh,
talk
It's
about the joy. Go ahead,
unreal.
Chris.
do you want to hear
Yeah,
what she
talk about the
said though?
joy.
And I want to go back to this. I wasn't here last week, so I want to throw a couple interview and some takeaways at both of you, see what you think about them.
Yeah.
But check this out. She said this. She said what we said a few moments ago. This is it. And you know what? That's a real message to voters.
I'm so proud to be running with Tim Walz for President of the United States and to bring America what I believe the American people deserve, which is a new way forward, and turn the page on the last decade of what I believe has been contrary to where the spirit of our country really
6 years.
lies.
But the last decade, of course, the last 3.5 years has been part of your administration.
I'm talking about an era.
She took 10 years of Obama, Biden, and Biden Harris. Okay, again, there were only 4 years of Republican leadership, and there were 10 years of Democrat leadership. And 2 of those years, 2 of the Republican years, you had Democrats stalling the Trump policies, including an infrastructure bill, by the way, and trying to impeach the guy and,
Yeah.
and pretty much stop him from doing anything right.
Well,
the
I mean,
era-
let's
the
talk
era is
about
the-
that for a second.
Yeah.
Well, so Karen, what do you think?
Yeah.
No, I mean, as a woman, what would you say she should be proud of exactly?
Well, I
Like,
think
she
she
wasn't
should
very
be proud that you named her Kamala Mala Ding Dong, because that is going to trend
Well-
for a very long time if our chat has anything to do with it, because
True.
that's the best
Well-
thing that's been said on this show, according to Deb. I mean, I don't even know, but it's trending. It's a big deal. But she really is. She's a ding dong. But
Yes.
the reality
Yes,
is there are a lot
literally.
of people. She's a less of a ding dong than a man with dementia that, whether the election was stolen or not, a lot of people voted for, or at least backed, right? They were like, okay, well,
Yep.
I'm on board with this. Let's see how things go. Well, it went horribly. And now she's a little bit better than him, which is a scary proposition when you think that we have people in this country that are so devoid of logic that they will vote for a man that's basically being trafficked into the White House. I mean, the Democrats and trafficking go hand in hand, whether we're talking about Waltz and child labor or this elder trafficking, which was putting a man who was totally unqualified for the job as the commander in chief of the United States of America. George Soros has anything to do with it. And, you know, by the looks of Columbia University, it looks like the Palestinian protesters are out in full force. And I would say George Soros is going to have a hand in yet another election. And here we're going to be in 2024. And it's a very scary proposition. But this woman may actually be the next president of the United States. I hope to God it's President Trump. And I want for every reason in my heart to believe that that's going to be the case. But we cannot escape the reality here.
We froze up a little bit.
Did we freeze?
Yeah, we froze up a little bit. I think we're good now, though.
right, good.
Here's another thing.
Are we
Another thing I
good?
want to ask you, Tony and Karen. I want to ask you a question. I think we're unfrozen
Go
now.
ahead.
Okay, so here's another one. I was watching this. I watched this a few times when I came back from from out.
Ed McMahon.
So from being away from Ed McMahon's school, if you will, and I'm watching her. Here's something that's very interesting. Donald Trump, when he does these interviews, even in enemy territory, will look the inquisitor, if you will, in the eye.
Yeah.
She barely did that. Understandably, she was staring at her notes, but she did not look this person in the eye. Dana Bash, if you will. Watch this about the fracking, and just watch her mannerisms and what she was doing and the way she looked. She's looking her in the eye now because the woman's asking, Bash is asking the question, but when she starts talking,
In 2019, I believe, at a town hall, you said you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes. So it changed in that campaign?
In 2020, I made very clear where
Moving
I stand.
moving
We are in
around,
2024,
popping
and
the
I've not
head.
changed that position, nor will I go
wouldn't look her in
forward.
the eye.
I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
What made you change that position at the time?
Well,
See,
let's be clear.
closing the eyes
My
again,
values
down.
have not changed.
Moving the head.
I believe it is
Down.
very important that we take seriously what we must do to guard
Unburden ourselves
against
from the
what is
past.
a clear
Right.
crisis in terms of the climate. And to
See,
do
she did.
that,
She
we
looked at
can.
her when she said in terms of the climate because she thinks climate change is a man-made climate change is the big threat. That's where she
Right.
looked her in the eye, but she immediately went back to the lying about the fracking and everything else.
Of course.
Didn't look at the look. She didn't look at the camera. Didn't look anybody in the eye. Barely looked at her notes and bobbed her head around. The sign of a liar, if you will.
Well, of course she
For sure.
lies. That's
I
her
didn't know you were
job.
a body
Yeah.
language expert, but she's absolutely evasive in everything she says. And it's incredible though. Again, like the whole teleprompter thing. Here they actually have somebody who's coherent. As much as we can tear her speeches apart, she is coherent and she can read a teleprompter, which is more than we've had in the last few years. We've had a man that couldn't give a speech. This is how far we've fallen, Chris.
So, Chris, part of what I'd like to touch base on regarding Kamala is some of the issues regarding Israel. Chris, can you hear me?
Is he frozen now? I mean, there's so much to talk about there, Tony. He would
Well,
definitely be weighing in if he wasn't
yeah.
frozen.
So he's got an Ed McMahon brain freeze. I think it's from the
It's
daiquiris. So,
it's the
Chris, are you
gremlin.
having a daiquiri this morning already? Is that what's freezing you up? Yeah. So it's the daiquiri. It's
Oh,
the daiquiri.
it's
See,
the
it's too much.
daiquiri. He's pointing
It's a
to it.
daiquiri.
I see it.
Yeah.
It's offset, but he's got one.
It's the
There
daiquiri.
you go.
It's the daiquiri effect. All right, Chris.
Play
We
the
can't hear
daiquiri.
you, but you can hear us. You're on mute.
Yeah.
Something muted you.
Interference.
There you
There
go.
you go. There he
Okay.
is.
There was interference in my internet service. So you see
Yeah,
that
I
my
know.
face will
Oh.
freeze.
No,
It'll be all
no.
good. Yeah.
It's probably just a daiquiri. You know, the Ed McMahon lime daiquiri first thing in the morning. It's okay. We know
Oh.
that you had to leave that school with some really new techniques, and that morning daiquiri, I'm sure, just starts that day off really good. Just saying. So
Then,
anyway,
well, that means I'm going to have to now poison your ears just for that.
let's do
So,
it
okay,
because I want to
CNN.
talk about Waltz. I do want to talk about this.
This
Yeah.
is I'm trying to. I don't think this is it. This clip is a disgusting clip out of CNN and what they're trying to pull. You remember the fist pump, of course, the fist pump video that seems to be ancient history thanks to the mainstream media, right?
Well, yes, I guess. Yeah.
Well, CNN is trying to create an iconic photo out of the DNC with Kamala Harris. They're trying to it looks like the media is trying to create a fist pump moment for Harris. And watch this, and I think it's disgusting of the media try to pull this on us.
And last question, Madam Vice President, the photograph
The
that
photograph.
has gone viral. You were speaking.
No, it hasn't.
One of your grandnieces
No, it
that you were
hasn't.
just talking
Yes.
about.
Yeah, it's this one right here, which doesn't even
No,
look
it
like it's
hasn't.
like a split screen.
Yeah.
They're trying to create an iconic photo because the idea is the fist pump photo helped Trump so much. It gave him an iconic photo, a moment in American history. They're trying to create a moment in American history for Kamala Harris, and they're forcing it through.
I think the most iconic photo of Kamala is the picture of she and Willie Brown seeing each other at a party. That's iconic. Like, hey, let's grab each other. Here we go. That's a great photo.
I
there.
like the
That's
Montel
iconic.
Williams photo. Personally, the Montel Williams photo to me just speaks volumes about who she is. It takes it back
yeah.
to California, the Hollywood aspect of it all. I mean, let's think about it. I mean, I'm still shocked that they haven't used Gavin Newsom more. They have him cleaning up the streets in some sort of theatrical presentation out there. But other than that, he's pretty much been absent. And I thought they were going to pull him out of the shadows by now. It's pretty incredible. Just they have this whole cast of characters and they're plugged into the role for the moment at hand. And the simple fact is that, a lot of people are going to the play. A lot of people like the Broadway show. They like the Hollywood aspect, but, it's absolutely stomach churning for those of us that are awake.
No, but Karen, I like Hollywood. I just don't like bad Hollywood. I don't like, I
Right.
mean, it's like watching, it's like, there's some, like, have you ever seen the movie Plan 9 from Outer Space? I mean, that movie's so bad it's good. So I don't want to
I don't know
Plan
that
9
I
from Outer
have.
Space. Yeah, well, you ought to. It's a classic bad movie. Chris has seen it.
Okay.
Have you seen it, Chris? Have you seen it, Chris? It's It's the one with the governor of New York playing the lead role of Vampira.
Oh, it's
Remember
a
that?
classic. It's a classic.
Yeah, it's a
Plan-
classic.
It goes
Yeah,
up there with right. Yep. Goes
yeah.
up there with
Bring her
Freaks,
up?
by the
Can you
way.
bring up the Vampira? She's in that. She's
The
Vampira from
governor
Plan
of New
9.
York. I mean,
She
was
is.
in the
She
movie.
is. I swear to God, Chris, find it, Chris.
Yes.
So Vampira is, I
Uh-huh.
guess, vampire. No, we're fusing Hollywood and politics here on this show. Don't let it ever be
Wow.
said that we didn't fuse things. So just check it out. Vampira is the stage name for Hochul in her previous life as an
Vampira.
actor. No,
Yes.
I'm
And
Wow.
swear to
there,
God.
there is a
Wow.
resemblance.
You
There's a
know,
huge
none of this
resemblance.
surprises me.
It's her.
None
It's
of this.
her. They are the same person. Hopefully, Chris will find it here in a second, but he'll bring it
Hopefully,
up.
of course,
Oh,
I
I
found it.
hope so.
There it is. There, see, look, there she is. There's Governor Hochul.
Oh my
It's right
goodness.
there.
That is absolutely her.
Wow.
That's Governor Hochul
amazing.
right there. There you go. What else
There
do you
you
need to see?
go.
See, it's like you were saying, Karen, Hollywood and politics are very close, especially when you got people who start off as actors and fall, they suck. And there she is. See, she was reimagined as a governor. Same thing with Kamala. She was a showgirl and now she's a politician. You see?
They separated
This is like,
birth.
that's right. It's like we there you go. See, she's all grown up and a
Yeah.
governor.
Well, and look at AOC. I mean, AOC was cast for the role too. All of these people.
That's right.
Ilhan Omar.
That's
Why
right.
is she such a spectacle? She's a spectacle because she works for the radical left. She works for the jihadists, and they're dressing her up in a costume and putting her on stage. Let's be real. It's what it is.
Yes.
I just, these people are such frauds, all of them.
Oh, they are. So I'm looking for the sequel, Plan 10 from Manhattan, where she becomes a human being. So she always wanted to be a boy, apparently, right, Chris? Just like
yes, and Geppetto, the Geppetto who will be carving her as a puppet will be played by George Soros.
That's
because
George Soros.
There you go.
And they'll give her a penis. They'll give her a penis.
See, the reason why Gavin Newsom is not doing anything for Harris is because everybody knows Harris is the stopgap. Harris is the one. Look, if the Democrats wanted Harris to be president at any time, at any place, and anywhere, they would have made her president last year.
Yep.
They would have sat Joe Biden down and said, this has to end. We have a competent person behind you. That's it. All Joe Biden did was ensure he'd never get impeached or never get 25th Amendmented.
That's a lie.
She's more likely to get 25th Amendmented, to be honest with you. And they bring in Walls. Newsom has his eye on 2028 with Vampira as his vice president, or Gretchen Whitmer. It's either Vampira or Gretchen Whitmer.
I think it's Vampira. I think they want that darker vibe. Although Gretchen's pretty dark as well. I don't know which one is darker. We should ask the Patriots sometime which one is darker, Whitmer or Hochul. And I don't know. Vampire is pretty dark.
I think Whitmer. I think Whitmer is going to be the choice. I mean, I'm just going to throw. I would say if you were going to give me the two, I would go with Whitmer.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I for those who've not checked it out, check out some of Governor Hochul's best work, Plan 9 from Outer Space, in her previous life as Vampira. She can't act. She really can't be governor either, but it's worth the watch, right, Chris? I mean, it's like,
Well, the other choice would be Gretchen Whitmer, who is an avid bike rider, apparently.
I'll get you and your little dog too.
Yep.
Oh,
Nancy Pelosi. I just think about Nancy Pelosi.
Oh.
I mean, that's who that is to me.
Yeah, but there's no bottle in that basket. There was a dog in there.
So anyway, but before so we got to get to Paul Stone in a second, but I do want to cover one other thing with you, Karen, before we go to Paul.
Sure.
So over the weekend, tragically, it was discovered that one of the American hostages was murdered by Hamas. And oh my, did you see the pictures of Kamala and Tony? I have no idea where I parked my car blinking in the Situation Room, all looking all like official, talking about how they're now working 24/7 to get those hostages back. Don't you know? And
yeah,
I did. So did I miss something? But wasn't Joe Biden on the beach for the last 2 weeks? Am I missing something here? I don't. That didn't seem like 100% effort there, Karen, to me. I don't know. I mean,
well, I mean, the man needs to be on the beach. Let's call that what that is. He's an old man who can't do anything for any of us anyway. But the problem is we have no decent influence of power in this country, and the people who are terrorizing others know that they're in control. And until this administration is pushed out of power, and I mean that goes for the globalists. I mean, they know that we're not in control. They know we don't have a free America anymore, and they're taking advantage of it. These
Right.
innocent people that were murdered in Israel, this should be something that every single person in this country should be rising up against. And meanwhile, we're looking at Columbia University, and we've got people marching, not only supporting Hamas, but that don't know the difference between a Saudi Arabian flag and a Hamas flag, and are flying the flag of Saudi Arabia in the quads today. I mean, the whole thing is so just strewn with misinformation. But more than that, it all comes down to money. And it's all about follow the money, whether it's to the World Economic Forum or to who's paying these protesters. And once we look at that, we look at the people that are willing to take our freedoms and take advantage of this country. And they're the ones that are perpetuating this World War III that's taking place in the Middle East. I mean, I can't believe as an American, that we're going to see the day that we potentially have this, female president who really isn't even qualified to be on the ballot. What has happened to our country? Right?
Well, so
I mean, it's
one
just mind-boggling.
one thing we can depend upon, I think, is I know I'm calling an audible here, but you're usually pretty good about this. Do you have
Sure.
Jesus calling that we could do this morning for the
You know
folks?
what?
calling?
I don't, because I don't have my
Oh,
book
did she
in
freeze
front of me,
it?
but I can pull this up so quick on the internet, because the internet is a
Well,
magical.
there you go.
Yeah, that's a great
I
thing.
can go ahead and
I
I
know,
can
it
do
is.
it like
So,
on the fly, right?
Folks miss you.
Make sure there's no
doing that.
misinformation
So
out there. There we go.
we'll do
I
that. We'll
got
do
it.
that
I
on the
mean,
fly.
and
If you
if
got one, do Jesus calling for us today, then we'll bring in Paul. There you
I
go.
got it.
See?
Living independence on me is a glorious adventure. Most people scurry around busily trying to accomplish things through their own strength and ability. Some succeed enormously, but fail miserably. But both groups miss what life is meant to be, living and working in collaboration with me entirely. And when you depend on me continually, your entire perspective changes. You'll see miracles happening all around where others see only natural occurrences and coincidences. You'll realize there are no coincidences. You'll begin each day with a joyful expectation, watching to see what I do. You'll accept weakness as a gift from me, knowing that my power plugs into you most readily to make you unweak. Your plans might be tentative, but know that my plans are far superior. You consciously live, move, and have your being in me. Desiring that I live in you is the way to be. This is the intimate adventure that I offer you.
There you go. That's
Beautiful.
a great message for this morning. Yes.
Amen.
So, having faith, having a sense that, hey, we can get through this. Sometimes being weak is not a bad thing, because you are open to other options which come to you, right?
Yeah, or sometimes desperate times, it's like the phoenix rising, sometimes the fire's got to get really hot.
And that happens to be kind of the focus of what we're going to be talking about this morning with Paul Stone. Paul did an article on his Substack talking about what it means. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning.
Welcome back to Wake Up Patriots.
Good morning.
Hey, morning, Paul.
So, Paul, I was just reading through your latest Substack. I guess I'm saying it correctly.
Yeah.
And you talk about being open to different things, which basically you're looking at how many of the norms that we've been essentially brought up with are being destroyed, and how we need to go about trying to make sure that we do the right things to essentially maintain those norms. And I don't know if it's being open to, I don't even know how to explain it, because it's not about change. It's about the opposite of change. It's about stability. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? And I don't want to butcher the name, because I'm bad with Latin, but it's forces majeure.
Yeah.
Major, forces majeure, and it's on his Substack. So it's Latin for. So Paul, go ahead and jump into that with us if you could.
Sure. And if I can just reflect quickly on Karen's reading. Yeah, I've lived part of my life lived just with the thrust and will and and intention of Paul Stone. And that wasn't a life that wasn't too enjoyable. That was, a long time ago. But I've also lived now for over 26 years, the life of freedom, when I found a connection and the inspiration of a power greater than me that I choose to call Jesus and I choose to call God. And I think what's so relevant from the reading thrown against the scene of our political environment is Jesus was one hell of a leader. He was one hell of an example and one hell of a source of inspiration and energy. And our leadership structure in Washington, and perhaps as far as Wall Street, has been nothing like that. It's been nothing that codifies people in a belief system that are inspired to march behind, the flag of that belief. This flag is also a leadership example. It's a remembering of the leaders that created that flag and the principles that they built their lives on and built the Constitution from, all painful life's lessons from their lives previous to that flag coming into existence. And what was life like for us before Jesus came? And the examples that he set and the inspiration that he creates for us to try and emulate a life like that one. Because the greatest thing from his life, to me, as an example, was a life of freedom, personal freedom, regardless of life's curveballs and pitfalls and the bridge is out and the trap door was there and you fell through it and all that stuff life does. We were still a free people because we were led by principles and truth. And for many, many decades now, our financial system and the political decision-making, the entity that makes decisions for us without communicating with us, means there is no leadership and we're a very disorganized people. That's why at the core of my message is, aside from protecting your savings, is this personal, inspirational message to each individual who could listen and hear on any of the shows that I go on, is about courage. It's about stopping the laziness. Yep. It's about waking up from the slumber our government betters have dulled us into. So when we look at what forces majeure is, it's Latin for acts of God. Terrible floods, right? Terrible outcomes, acts of God, as it's called. There's also very many good acts of God. But that article starts off talking about things we cannot control or even foresee very well. It's another thing from the reading. Humans are terrible at seeing around corners, but God sees all things, right? And so if we have a power source in our lives, in our minds, in our hearts that has that unlimited vision, and we work with that power, then it helps us humans see better and therefore then live better.
So I think go ahead, Karen. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Tony. I just keep going back to the kids, Tony, and talking about earlier. I've been so touched by what we talked about on the show today, just involving children. And Paul, what you said just resonated with me so much because they're taking God out of the equation for our kids, and our kids are growing up with this absence of God, and that's what's creating this volatile environment for all of us. And it's just heartbreaking to see.
Yeah, it's life led by the flesh. And, that's, I think people may put, and I certainly grew up hearing a negative connotation to, living by the flesh. The flesh is part of the magic, right? The human being is magical. And the flesh just means to me, and what I've come to see it as I've grown older and perhaps a little more wiser, is that it's just limited. The flesh is limited, has no vision, is a great device, a great creation, a great tool for doing many great things. It can also do very bad things. And God is beyond the flesh. God is, if God was just the pure energy of love throughout the entire universe, between every single atom in the air, in the ozone layer, in space, in all of the planets and the suns and the meteors and the asteroids and all of the dust, if everything connecting, all of that stuff was the loving energy of God, that's immeasurable and not limited in any way. And we're limited. I'm a limited being.
So one of the things, Paul, I think that people may not recognize is that physics and God aren't that far apart. I mean, there's the God particle. Yeah, I know. It's like Einstein figured it out. and it's like dark energy. Well, it's not actually dark energy; it's God energy. I mean, they figured out that the majority of the universe we can't see. It's this physics, and so that
Mhm.
energy is God. And on my personal story, I've been in recovery as a recovering alcoholic for 32 years. Wow, where's the time gone? And I
Wow,
turned my
buddy.
life over to God as I understood him, and that's God and Jesus and all the things that go with being open to allowing that energy to guide me. I mean, literally. I mean, that's to me the most important thing is to be open to that inspiration, that energy that is so important to getting through. And I know for a fact I would have not have survived the dangerous things, stupid. I did some really stupid things and some dangerous things, sometimes commingled. But I would not have survived those things without the grace of God, and still be here doing the things I get to do, and get to talk to the good patriots like the folks here that see us, and you all here with me right now. So I'm very grateful, and I think that's one of the things we want people to understand is that God gives us the gift of uh, of of intellect. We can discern. Discernment is a key component of. I don't think weakness, because we talked about weakness. It's more about the fact that we are open. We're open to those things which are necessary to sustain our families and us. So that's why I think what Paul is here to talk about, and what we talk about every week with Paul, is so important. We need to find a way to make sure that no matter what comes, that we are given the best possible options to make sure that we will sustain ourselves and thrive and survive. So that's why what we want you to do, and Paul is here to help, is go to colonialmetalsgroup.com. Ed Henry, Ed Dash Henry, it's apparently working, colonialmetalsgroup.com, Ed Dash Henry. There he is. There's Ed, the slave driver. Or call 800
But keep in mind,
It's
he might
true.
be, but we're not minors, so that
That's
proves
right.
he's
We're
not a
not minors.
Democrat. So
He's not. That's
we're
right.
not minors
So
mining, if you will.
that's right. 800-805-4034, 800-805-4034. So what we're talking to you about and what we believe is completely uh, necessary is sustainment of our future. Karen talked about earlier being worried about the trends politically. Chris has brought up some of the anomalies, I guess is the most polite way to say, about the Democrat policy conflicts, about saying one thing and probably going to do something else because, she said, Kamala Harris said she's not going to change her principles. So, okay,
Okay,
well, if
what
you're not going to change your
principles? Yeah,
principles,
what
yeah,
principles?
yeah, what principles? So, and then so Paul's talked about, his personal story. And, again, I have immense faith in God and being open to the universe, and this is where that
Mhm.
what by the fact you're open means that you eventually have to take action. The idea that I'm just going to be taken care of. Well, yes and no. Yes, you could live in the love of God in the energy, but that action has to be informed by your intellectual choices. And so I think that's why it's important to do it. So again, check out colonialmetalsgroup.com, Ed-Henry, or call them at 800-805-4034, 800-805-4034. You will thank us later. You will thank us today if you do it. So just go do it. So, but Paul, I did want to continue our conversation on this because so many things that have been discussed regarding the economy. Like Tim Walz actually said that the 2025 project includes a return to U.S. Child labor. What? I mean, it's
This is
like,
people count on us not on anybody not reading Project 2025 or anything else like that. That's ridiculous.
yeah. So, I mean, it's like you could just go read Project 2025. I mean, I think it is required for anybody who signs up in most states to be a Democrat. I think you have to have a vasectomy. I think that's in there. I think that's true.
Well, we hope so.
But other than that, no.
That's why they're getting them out. That's why they had the van at the
That's
convention.
right. So, Paul, what do you make of this nonsense from Tim Walz? Like, we're going to put your kids in mines.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. But it goes into the consciousness of that campaign, right? By Kamala, by the people with organizing it, the people putting that campaign forward like it's some movie production. They're just picking characters off the DAs to fill in the roles, right? And that's pretty much what they did when Biden was running. They X'd out Bernie Sanders, and they looked around for who should be his VP, and then who would they want in charge that they could still attach the puppet strings to after Joe Biden, and that was Kamala. Yeah. Kamala was that candidate, and here she is now running. And all they're doing is changing. My point is, to answer your question, is all they're doing is changing the words around necessary for the soundbite to half the country that listens to MSNBC and CNN and the similar, media outlets that Democrat, type oriented mindsets want to follow and get informed on. And we, on the other half of the country that, listen to Newsmax and Fox and shows like these and are inspired by the principles of our country, hoping they'll someday find a way to return. We look at that and say, but here's what you've put in writing. You've put in writing you're against fracking. You're against all these other things. Now from the podium, you're just saying what you need to say to get elected. And it's horrific that we are at that point now where that's literally the game, and they're doing it right in front of us. They're literally doing it. They're not even hiding it. They're not even technically lying in a way, because we all understand it's just part of the game for them to get those few votes from the other side of the aisle, or that independent voter pool that watches both programs, CNN and Fox and Newsmax and the shows that are like that. And that's what the election is. But to me, it's sickening, and it goes back to there is no true inspirational set of principles in place in the candidate side and the leadership side from the Democratic Party. And the Republican Party struggles with that as well. It's just at least they're still trying to run on the principles that created the country in the first place.
Well, Paul, I think that George Clooney is the equivalent of today's George Washington. I mean, he has done so much to help the Democrats sort through their problems. And like he said, people will soon forget that they had a coup against Joe Biden, right? I mean, who cares? What's a little coup between friends, right? Who cares about
forgot
it?
already. I forgot.
I'm afraid it's going to go. I'm afraid it's going to go down in history, Tony, and they're going to rewrite it like they rewrite everything else, and it's going to be like, he started to have memory loss, and Jill wanted to protect him, and there was Kamala just waiting to help everyone. Like, it's going to be ridiculous when we look back at this piece of history and how they're going to change that narrative to make the insiders that have trafficked this old man the heroes in their deluded story about how they stole the American government.
That's only if they win. If they lose, then Kamala Harris is going to go down and be forgotten in history like Dan Quayle. There we go.
Well, we
don't say go down and Kamala Harris in the same sentence, Chris.
Oh yeah, you know what? My guard was down. I should have known that going to Ed McMahon's school last week. That's
don't say that. That's right. Hey-o.
Hey-o, yeah. Oh my gosh.
So anyway, but I think we all recognize here that these are the issues we face. And I know, Karen, you said at the beginning of the show you're worried about the trends. I think that most people now have recognized, and I'm going to hit something that may come to people uncomfortable. I'm going to say it. Reparations. So over the weekend, the Black citizens of California were disappointed. I don't know why, because it's a Democrat-run state, so they should never be disappointed by their failure. But apparently, there was a 2-year effort to identify the means, methods, and funding for reparations. Now, first off, I'm like the Speaker of the California House. Like, I'm against it. There's not a single person alive today who was a victim of slavery. It's not. And secondly, California wasn't even a slave state, for goodness sake. And he said in his official statement on Twitter, it's like, if anybody owes reparations, it's the Democrat Party, because the Democrats were the ones who were. It's like, okay, well, you Democrats give it to them then. But my point being is that Gavin Newsom actually kind of strung them all along. And at the very last minute, oh my goodness, we got all this legislation. We're going to have a freed persons bureau, and we're going to do all this, like crickets. Like, oh, did we say this? No, they just dropped it. It was so embarrassing for him, Paul, that they wouldn't even take it to the floor. The people wouldn't show up. They were banning people. I mean, why do people keep falling for this nonsense from them? I don't get it.
They're all just sound bites, and
Right.
I know.
It's
Hollywood's
easy.
probably an incredible influence on the Democrat Party. If you polled most people in Hollywood working in Hollywood, I'm sure more than half. My gut says that more than half of them, probably 70-80% of them, would vote Democrat. And so if they're all believing the same system, and Hollywood then can support and find groovy ways like blocking and censorship on the social media platforms online to help their Democrat leaders get elected and become actual leaders for their belief system, you have a falsehood in the world, a falsehood in America. You have a falsehood that is being created from fear, from the willingness to want to control and oppress. And that's, we used to have a saying in this country a long time ago, get the hell out. That's not what America is about. If you don't like it here, move. Don't
We have
come
values.
here.
Values.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Paul, how can you say
Try
that
to
about
find
the
a
party of
country
joy?
on earth where it's fair and fun every day. There isn't
Yeah.
one. So let's get back to reality. Benjamin Franklin was known for being a great realist, in my opinion. And one of the things he said is that the minority position shall suffer for the benefit of the majority, knowing that you can't please all the people all the time. And not everyone's going to come into alignment. So at least 70% or so of a people will be liking the decision making that's coming out of Washington, and 30% of people or so won't. But that's better than no one likes what's going on, as we have today. But neither side today is happy.
Well, this is why the Democrats. That's why the Democrats think they need a ministry of disinformation. So they're probably going to bring
misery
in
loves
Janko.
company. Misery
Yeah.
loves company. Isn't that the
Actually,
phrase?
Aladocious.
That's what, if I could say anything important today, that's the thing that I really want to bring to folks that are listening and watching. Especially our retired community. It really is one more time to get out of the lazy boy. It's time to get energized on one thing again. And it isn't necessarily about starting a local crusade to make sure this election goes the way we might want it to go, and go Republican, go Trump. It's what can you do personally in your life, again, one more time, of all the holy hells that our retired community has been through in the last 60, 70, 80 years, that they've survived and witnessed. That huge wisdom that resides within our old timers' minds and their life experience needs to come back out into their family. It needs to come back out into the town, the block they live on, right? Out into the county and out into the state. And the states can change by human beings showing the example of principles in their lives, letting youngsters know, setting that example again. What can we change? We don't individually have much to do with changing how this election goes in 60 days or whatever. But we do have the power to change what we're doing in our own lives while this crap storm swirls around us. If we're spending all of our time against stuff, what are we spending our time for? And I think people need to start spending more time on what they're for, instead of just caught up in this angry swirl of emotional, release where we're against everything. What are we for? And people need to start looking at what they're for and honoring the principles that Jesus laid down in that book. Because I know what these people are made of, and they're made of great stuff. So I don't mean to lecture. I'm trying to inspire a little, maybe a little foot to butt. But that's what I'm seeing. People need to start banding back together. From one individual setting that example, like Jesus walking through the desert and people wondering what he was all about because he was behaving a little different. His life was built on principles. And we recognize that. We recognize that when we see it in others.
But that snake will come back and divide and conquer. Let's take it back to 2001. This nation was virtually together after the attacks on American soil by terrorists.
Right.
And not just the World Trade Center. We know the other attacks for a little while, but it didn't take very long for some aspects on the left to start fueling more, let's just say, separation or what's the word am I thinking of? A separation of the two of us. Yeah.
Divisiveness.
Divisiveness.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Divisiveness.
Mhm.
And they're saying, no, what you're doing is racist. What you're doing is this. You shouldn't be out there slaughtering people in Afghanistan. But that's not even what they were doing. The idea is once we're together, if we ever get together, there will be factions on social media. They're going to be let out there. Could be George Soros, could be the World Economic Forum, could be the DNC. They're going to instill a lot more, just another bit of divisiveness. So we'll go back to uh, my team bad, your team good, and that's kind of the opposite of what
Well,
America needs.
so let me hit that real quick, Chris. So we're all Americans, and I think this is the
Right.
thing that the other side has been really trying to drive a divide into, that there's a them and us. They're the ones who say, oh well, the other side's trying to destroy, make us the enemy. It's like, no, I actually have friends who are liberals. Mark, I was talking to Paul the other day after the show. I know Tulsi Gabbard. I'm going to see if I can ask Tulsi to come and visit us at some point. Tulsi was a Democrat until she started recognizing that there was real flaws in her own party. And so I do reach out and talk to folks. I'm all for inclusion. They're the ones who basically say somehow if we did you see that, Paul, over the weekend, that the New York Times is saying the Constitution is the enemy of the people?
Yeah.
What?
And
Oh,
and from their
what?
viewpoint,
But it's
their
living and
viewpoint, it
breathing.
is. Everyone gets a trophy viewpoint. The
Yeah.
Constitution is a mean piece of paper.
It's racist. There you go. But
Shame on those founding fathers, right?
Yeah, but it's a living, breathing document. Didn't you hear Obama? It's a living and breathing. It's subject to change. We need to put activists in the Supreme Court to correct the wrongs that the
That's
founding
right.
fathers.
Well, apparently his masseuse is no longer living and breathing. Just saying, but that's
There is a
different.
chef.
Ooh.
Chef, whatever it was, he was somebody out there. I don't
Well,
know what happened.
there are quite a few
Yeah,
bodies around the
very
Clintons and the
strange.
Obamas. So that's another thing. For all
Just
the Democrats
saying.
say about Donald Trump now, he's horrible. There aren't too many dead bodies around him like there are around the Obama, Biden administrations and the Clintons. So that's
Clinton,
just-
yeah.
yeah.
Foster.
Oh,
So
yeah.
well, anyway, we got a late start today, so I got to close it up now because I got to jump off and do some Newsmax here in a few minutes. But I appreciate everybody being here today. We've had a great show. Paul, thank you for being here again. Let's talk about Paul. Chris, bring it back up his Substack, please.
Oh,
So
Substack,
please go.
definitely.
Yeah, so we'll check out his Substack because it's got
That's great.
information in there.
It's
There you go. I
always
like
good
it.
stuff here. Always
Check
good
out his
stuff.
Substack. I subscribe to it. You should subscribe to it. A creek, a flood, to a desert. So that's Paul just did that 12 hours ago. So be sure and check that out. And
Plenty more here.
yeah. And so we'll have Paul back again next week, and we'll continue the conversation. Karen, thank you for being here today. We
Yep.
always appreciate you jumping in and doing Jesus Calling. So in the meantime, besides seeing Paul's Substack, check out colonialmetalsgroup.com. Ed-Henry. There he is, the slave driver. Okay, he's not really a slave driver. He's a nice guy, but he's pretty strict on making sure that we show up and do our best to make him look good, because this is his show,
Yes, it's Ed
And
Henry's
by the way,
show.
that's why we sent Chris off to Ed McMahon School of Sidekicks, just because we want to improve the quality of the
I
show.
had to keep in that voice. Hey-o! There we go.
Hey-o.
And,
That's
and
right.
the other thing is, there was intense weightlifting during that week too, by the way. Did you know that?
Oh,
We
yeah.
had to-
Oh,
not only did
yeah.
we do voice training, but it was intense weightlifting because we have to make sure we're able to lift those huge checks when we bring them to people's houses.
That's right. It's huge. All right. Yes, Chris. So anyway, we'll be back tomorrow morning for another great episode. And then, Paul, is there anything else that you want to close out with? I mean, I think we've all recognized that people need to act in their own best interest. You have a way of their acting in their interest. So other than checking you out, I think they need to do that, right?
Yeah, it's just, if it was forced upon you on the other side of this election to recognize just how unfree you actually are, then that's what people will get. I mean, Jesus always talked about you have to get up off your laurels and move and act
Work.
and
Do
follow,
something.
and
Take action.
you will be made fun of, and you will be chastised, and you will be ridiculed, because you're going to be going against the fear-mongering big giant portion of the human race is fear-mongering. The default setting seems to be that it lives from fear. So when you stand up with courage, people are going to throw stones at you. People are going to laugh at you, make fun of you, try to single you out. So if we've been lulled into just laying low and hoping someone else is going to come and fix things, you know, Jesus isn't coming to the White House, right? So regardless of who ends up elected, they aren't coming to restore America. There's too much roadblock, too much trouble in actually changing much at all. Trump had one hell of a 4-year shot at it, and the swamp is still intact. So not putting him down, just pointing out how limited these people actually are. And so if you cannot recognize how unfree you are today, imagine how unfree you're going to feel if your money and your finances goes awry, if your savings evaporates, right? So in full-blown communism, that's what communism requires, that it takes possession of wealth and resources like land and factories and, you know, dams and power plants, and just all that stuff ends up being controlled and owned by the state. If that's the direction we're headed, because I don't see us headed to pure democracy, I don't see us headed to colonial times these days. I see us moving toward the very far end of that spectrum of colonial times and communism. Please realize that if you lose control of your financial resources or access to them, or the value is diminished because of a forces majeure event, the 11th recession in our nation's history since World War II, this one being extremely ugly, if you lose that financial resource, then you will understand what it's like to feel like a slave to the government. And I inspire and want to beg and hope and plead for people to realize we've witnessed extraordinary people, but all of us are magical, incredible creations with the capability of doing extraordinary things. They weren't born, George Washington wasn't born extraordinary, but in a situation, he rose up. It could have been someone else by another name that would name that city after, in, you know, Washington, D.C., but it happened to be him. All of the same ingredients reside in all of us. We all have that capability to do extraordinary things, but we have to act, and we have to risk getting laughed at and stones thrown at us while we do it. But today, these times, it's imperative.
We all have the spark of God in us, Paul. We do. And with that said, remember, green is the new red. I mean, not the Trump red, the communist red. I am not joking. Again, I've got a degree in environmental studies. Let me say for the record, the world ain't ending. Man-made climate change is a fiction. Al Gore said 20 years ago that the ice caps would be melted by 2008, 2008 or 2009. We're just fine.
This is the green.
Don't buy into it. It's all about the Green New Deal is essentially Marxism repackaged, rebranded as a new religion for today's kids. That's all it is. So buyer beware. Listen to what Paul's telling you. Listen to what's best for you and take action. So anyway, we got to go. Paul Stone of Colonial Metals. Thank you, Paul. Check out his Substack. Be sure. Oh, and of course, thanks to Vampirilla for making a guest appearance. Governor Hochul in her early days. Paul, I don't know if you know, she was a great actress. No, well, there you ruined the Governor Hochul spot. There you go.
Oh, darn it!
You live in Governor Hochul State, don't you?
Yeah, that's why I try to avoid her.
Does she walk around the highways looking like that? I wonder, because man, that would be scary.
Well, she doesn't dress as well.
man, oh man. Anyway, Karen, thank you again for being here today. We'll see you again next Tuesday, right?
Yep. See you Tuesday.
Oh, I gotta go. So I'll see you all soon.
Yes.
Thanks, Paul.
Bye, guys.
Thanks,
Have a great
Karen.
one.